Welcome. Today we are discussing legal, social, and ethical issues in the classroom. Legal issues in the classroom include fair use and Creative Commons. Fair use. It's a legal doctrine that portions of copyrighted materials may be used without permission of the copyright owner provided the use is fair and reasonable, does not sustainably impair the value of the materials, and does not curtail the profits reasonably expected by the owner. Some examples of activities that could qualify as fair use are criticism, comments, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. 4 factors that courts use to determine fair use are the purpose and character of the use, whether commercial or educational. Second, the nature of the copyrighted work. Third, the quantity and quality of the copyrighted work. And lastly, the effects of the value of the copyrighted work. Now let's explain these 4 a little bit further. The first one. The courts look at how the party claiming fair use is using the copyrighted work, and are more likely to find that non-profit, education, and non-commercial uses are fair, but not always, depending on the other factors. The second, using a more creative or imaginative work is less likely to support a claim of fair use than using a factual work. Third, if the use includes a large portion of the copyrighted work, fair use is less likely. A small amount of copyrighted material, fair use is more likely. Lastly, courts determine whether the unlicensed use harms the market value of the copyright owner's original work. Fair use in the classroom. A really great tool I found was this concept map. First, the 3 rules of thumb every teacher should use when thinking about fair use. First, if you did not personally create what you were working with, go ahead and assume that it's copyrighted. Second, if your use of the work will result in profit, distribution, or personal gain, you should always get permission to use it first. Third, if the work is not being recreated or used outside a school class, you are typically safe, but it is always best to have the original source cited and available. So you can type in and find this concept map fairly easy. That way you can have it in your classroom as a tool just to reference for any reason. A lot of these uses end up, you are being safe, but there are some times where you're not. If you haven't been granted permission and you're not recreating the original work, this could be illegal. So this tool is very important to make sure we don't go that route, and neither do our students. Creative Commons. Creative Commons help you legally share your knowledge and creativity to build a more equitable, accessible, and innovative world. The website unlocks a full potential of the internet to drive a new era of development, growth, and productivity. The best way to use and learn about this is just going to their website. It's just creativecommons.org. You can find all the information you need on this website. Frequently asked questions, history, their team, some videos, their mission and view, and where you share your work, use your work, remix the work, and all their licensing agreements, which we'll talk about next. So this tool, Creative Commons, this is just a simplified version of looking at how I can use the licenses. So if it's an attribution license that looks like this, I can share, remix, and make money as long as I mention the author. So this, again, is another great tool to use when thinking, what can I actually do with the copyrighted work I have found? So when you use Creative Commons in Classroom, using that chart above will really help when you are determining what you can do with it, remixing, sharing, or whatnot. Now let's move on to ethical issues in the classroom. The digital divide. The digital divide is the economic, educational, and social inequalities between those who have computers and online access and those who do not. The main factors I found that contribute to the digital divide are socioeconomic status, some racial inequalities, and educational level. The digital divide in regards to socioeconomic status. So we can really see, if we just look at the top end of our socioeconomic level, we have a range of 84 to 86% of people that have household computers and access to internet. While we look at the bottom, it's about a 30% drop-off as to the individuals who have access to Wi-Fi or computers. And we can see that it steadily decreases the lower your socioeconomic status is. The digital divide in regards to some racial inequalities. We can see some similarities between Asian, white, and other, and some American Indian or Alaskan Native, and then a small drop-off between the African American and the Hispanic. This is about a 11% drop-off from the others. This is not as big of a drop-off as we saw in the socioeconomic level, and that we will see in the educational level, that really shows just how important it is. So if we look at this educational level, we see that at the top with a college degree, just like the socioeconomic level, we're in the high 80s of people with access to the computer and internet. While when we go down here to our lowest education level, we're in the 50s, just like the socioeconomic level. So, how do we use this information in the classroom? How do we bridge the divide? Well, it starts with us as teachers. Most importantly, make sure you know how to use the technology inside and out. Know all aspects of it. So when you are teaching it to your students, they can get the full benefits of learning out of it. Also, always be pushing your school and district to improve its technology as technology improves. You don't want to be using an outdated version of a computer that hasn't been updated and try and go on web-based tools that need your computer to be updated if your school is not improving their technology. Also, with some technology, learn with the students. This can inspire them in wanting to learn more in the classroom, now that they know their teacher is a learner just like them. they're sometimes growing up with this technology and they just learn as they see it. This is the title of a good TED Talk that explains this further if you would like more information. Social issues in the classroom, the acceptable use policy, and cyberbullying. The acceptable use policy is a document stipulating constraints and practices that a user must agree to for access to a corporate network or the internet. Many businesses and educational facilities require that employees or students sign an acceptable use policy before being granted a network ID. So the best way to learn about this is to go and just look at one. This is just one, first one I found when I searched acceptable use policy in education. It's a real one that this school uses. The purpose of the technology use, the opportunities and risks of technology use, and it really gets details, the privileges and responsibilities, student users of technology shall, and it gets really specific of what they should do. Now, cyberbullying. If you are using technology in your classroom, and if you have students outside of the classroom who will use technology, this most likely will come up. And it's something that as teachers, we really need to address. Cyberbullying is the electronic posting of mean-spirited messages about a person, such as a student, often done anonymously. As we see in this graphic, over half of adolescents and teens have been bullied online, and about the same number have engaged in the bullying. More than 1 in 3 young people have experienced cyber threats online. Over 25% of teenagers and teens have been bullied repeatedly through their cell phones or internet. So what can we do? First, the acceptable use policy. Make sure you are aware of the acceptable use policy that your school follows. Then make sure your students are following this policy. With cyberbullying, create a safe space in your physical classroom and your virtual classroom to help limit the impacts of cyberbullying. Next, talk with your students. Talk with them about the importance of not cyberbullying. Do this in a way that may strengthen your classroom community. A possible activity could be to have your students start a campaign against cyberbullying. This could be just within the school, within the county, within your own classroom, or it can go as far as your students want it to, as far as the internet can reach. This will really build the classroom community and could lessen cyberbullying within the school or as far as your students want it to go. That's all I have for you. Thank you for learning about this with me.